Hi all, welcome to this new episode of my podcast, A Digital Tomorrow. I'm joined today by someone you may know as well from a previous episode, Christian Nielsen, who is the co-founder and CEO of LegalPass. Welcome, Christian, to my podcast again.
Thank you very much, Oriol. Thanks for having me again. So I guess I didn't ruin it the first time since you invited me back. So yeah, very happy to be here second time.
No, absolutely not. I mean, it was a very interesting episode, that first one. And actually, I think it's the only one out of my 60-ish episodes which covered more extensively legal tech and all these very interesting topics. So I know it was of huge interest to my listeners and viewers. And that's why it was an absolute pleasure to have you today again.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, and now since last time, I think you said it was back in 2022, right?
Right.
That we had the last episode. And I think more now than ever, legal tech has found its spot on the map. I can tell you, like when you are out back when I was fundraising back in also in 22. When you submit various pitch decks to investors, there's always these categories that you have to select, like what type of startup are you? Right, so you have to select, are you B2B, B2C, like what is your model or marketplace? But then you also have to select what is the industry that you're in. And almost never was there an option to choose legal or legal tech. It just didn't exist in their minds. Fintech, of course, always there, right? but never legal tech, and that has changed. So I think legal tech is probably one of the more hot areas today when you look at venture capital and where they're deploying their money, because of course a lot of it is going into AI. And one of the maybe top five, I think, at least from the VC's perspective, areas where AI can come in and solve or improve workflows and data collection, data mining, and so on is in the legal industry. So it's really now becoming a hot area, and it's nice now to be in legal tech because you get more interest than you did just a few years back. So thanks, Sam Altman, if you're listening, uh, for launching ChatGPT, because I think a big part of it was, of course, the launch of that and all the viral adoption of ChatGPT.
No, I think it's very interesting what you mentioned, because I know that fintech started first, right? I mean, it started to be a huge thing maybe back in 2018 or even before. But I think it's taken up a while for legal tech to catch up, maybe in that sense. But I'm starting to
Yeah.
notice that as well. I mean, I'm not working in legal tech like you are, so you are the expert. But still, when you check the job market, for example, you see many more offers for legal tech roles. You see many more legal tech related conferences. So there is this kind of movement in the area that I
Yeah.
didn't see before.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's what is what I've also noticed it that it's not just venture capitalists and investors that are looking more into legal tech. You can also feel when you speak to lawyers, either whether in small firms, big firms, that now it's on their agenda. Maybe it was a bit before, but I think more before it was more just like as a it just something they talked about, but now they're actually doing it, they're testing it. Many are developing their own you can isolated language models or other forms of, let's say, automation. um, and I can also see that there are where you can say different types of legal tech, so not the classic in the sense that it's that it helps the lawyers with their back office tools, or it's not AI in that sense, but more like even design tools. So recently, there's been a Danish company called Juristic, which has quite interesting tool. So I'm neither investor or related to them at all. I just think that it's pretty interesting what they've built, because I would say they've just taken Miro, which is this design tool that I also use myself because it's very easy to draw and to create flows and so on. So I've used that a lot in developing products. But now they've built a version for law firms, and it's a little bit the same as Miro, but it made it easy to do like corporate structures. So you can draw a square and then another square, and then you can say this is the holding company and this is the operating company, and then you can put in a new investor, and then it changes the percentages, and you can and now there's a merger, and it then keeps track of it all, which is it's quite helpful. I think that's something that lawyers would never work with before, right?
Mhm.
When I say we, I'm a lawyer myself, right? So we mostly work in Word, in Excel, sometimes. Otherwise, we might dare ourselves to work in PowerPoint or the similar suite in Google. But now seeing lawyers using tools like Heuristic or Miro or stuff like that, that's a new development, and I think that's just more of that is going to come. This, I would say, larger tech adoption by lawyers and law firms. Yeah.
And as someone like you who's been working in legal tech for many years and who's advocating, right, the use of technology in the legal sector, um, I wanted to ask you, like, how difficult is it, you think, for the legal industry to adopt new technologies, especially considering the sometimes somewhat traditional mindset of the legal industry? I'm asking that because I said that, for example, fintech started first,
Yeah.
but I think
Yeah.
that to some extent it might seem easier to add new technologies, certain algorithms, etc., to the financial industry. But then when it comes to the legal industry, I know that it differs depending on each country and each person at the end of the day, but
Yeah.
still,
Yeah.
there is this kind of idea that the legal industry tends to be somewhat conservative, traditional. So in your experience, how difficult is it to try to modernize, to make this industry more tech savvy?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things going on. I haven't researched it. It's just more of a hunch and what I see happening in law firms. And I also know, now I'm 42, which means that many of my friends who are lawyers, they are also in their 40s, and now they are becoming partners, or have been for a while, in bigger law firms in around the world. Um, and now basically the decision structure in law firms historically has been the partners deciding, also on topics like which technologies, if any, should be applied across the law firm. Um, and now it's this, I would say, a little bit more digital savvy generation that is coming up in the partner suite, and they are now the majority. So they are actually now able to make decisions to adopt technology, which they feel a lot more comfortable with, because they are, if not digital native, then at least the generation just before that. So I think that's actually one of the big drivers as well. And then which was probably is a little different in the financial industry, where it's more common to have a more professional, I would call it, decision making setup, where you have your CEO, your CTO, and so on. And yeah, they might also be up in age, but they just have a different way of making decisions. But I think now it's catching up, the digital age, with many or most law firms. They just can't ignore it anymore. So that's been I think one thing that's changed. Then another one, and this one will take a lot longer to change, if it ever will change, because it's been around for centuries, or or even longer, I guess. I don't know when the first lawyer existed, probably back in the Greek or Egyptian days. But the concept of billing by the hour, right? So,
Mhm.
the business model of a law firm, um, it's the whole concept of billing by the hour. It actually is counterintuitive that you would then try to optimize yourself or your workflows, because the more time you spend on something, the more you can, in theory, bill. So that's the kind that's kind of also worked against technology adoption, because most technology is here to make you work faster, right? More efficient. So I think we'll slowly, but again very slowly, see law firms move more and more away from the billable hour model, and start venturing out in other business models. Yeah,
Yeah, I
there's
used
been a
to.
shift already.
No, I agree. I agree. I used to work for a law firm as well, and remember we used to bill by the hour, and to me that's a very outdated model. I know it's been working like that for ages, but I think that especially now, as you said, given that new technologies in theory allow us to work faster and more efficiently, uh, keeping that model in which you bill by the hour, meaning that the longer it takes you, the more you're going to make. Well, I think it's quite outdated, honestly.
Yeah. But again, let's see what happens. So, but also in terms of adopting LLM models, right? So one major concern that we've seen is that, well, like many others, lawyers, but maybe lawyers in particularly, they care about privacy,
Mhm.
because they have this even enhanced level of confidentiality towards their clients, right? So when, as a client, share information with the lawyer, it then becomes extremely confidential, and in many NDAs include information that you can't even, or in court system, like legal systems, that there has to be something extreme before you can force a lawyer to tell client confidential information. So lawyers, they have this extreme degree of privacy that they have to take care of. So adopting these LLM models where they might have been trained on information, or there's a risk that they are training information that is confidential, and that information then is shared with a wider public or just outside of the law firm. That's a huge risk, and something that the lawyers, they really have to, they have been very, very concerned about. Um, but there are solutions to that, and being able to train a model on only selected areas of information, so maybe not the most confidential, is a way around it. So you also host it, and everything is done locally within the law firm, within their building. Then you can actually reach pretty high levels of security.
Mhm.
So yeah, so that's what we have seen now. I think will also be what's going to happen is there's going to be a lot of larger law firms that is going to build their own models. So you will have, Sidley Austin will have their own model, Skadden will have their own model, and so on. And and that is going to benefit them. It's going to benefit their clients. So what we're still missing to see is, from my perspective, is someone going out there to build a model that can help the wider public. Um, so where you can maybe get some of the most common legal questions or concerns or doubts or whatever solved fast and efficiently with the use of AI only. So without any lawyer being involved, because that's the gray area, where there's people who actually have a need, and then you have lawyers that don't want to fulfill that need because they can't bill that time. They can't get money from that time they would spend answering these doubts or questions. So they don't want to do it.
Mhm.
That's really probably what's created the justice gap, which I think we also talked about last time,
Mhm.
which is there's billions of people that don't get their daily legal needs met. Um, so one way, of course, is to try to use AI to solve a part of that. a slightly different way, and now introducing Legal Pass. A slightly different way is that what we're doing a Legal Pass is that we actually have lawyers who are trained to answer doubts and these, I would say, simple questions. And the way it works is that it's your employer that that pays for Legal Pass, so it's an employee benefit. So the way it works is you are a large corporation. You then have different kinds of benefits for your employees. It could be health benefits, it could be food coupons, it could be gym pass, but it can also be Legal Pass. And if you're so lucky to have Legal Pass, then you as an employee, you can then go and call our legal hotline anytime and get answers to whatever doubts you have. And it's very similar to these kind of doctor or health hotlines, which are very common. And I mean, I've used that a lot here in Spain, where I live, through our private insurance. That you have this hotline where you can call a doctor. My kid has had fever for two nights. Should I go to the emergency, or is it okay? Should I just these kind of doubts where you can just get immediate response, someone guiding you and saying, no, it's okay. As long as it's not above 40 degrees fever, then it's fine. So that's the kind of help that we're also offering through Legal Pass, but for legal. And we started out in Brazil, and we have just seen massive interest, and very excited that we are now covering more than 40,000 employees.
That's a lot.
And every day we get around 10 doubts, I would call them. So employees that just reach out and say, this and this happened. What should I do, right? Because that's I think the first step in any kind of legal situation is you have a situation, but you don't understand what is the next steps. Do I need a lawyer even? Can I solve this myself? Should I go to the town hall? Or there's many different things that you might need to do. So just look for this kind of guidance. We give them the guidance, so it's not like real legal. It's not like a real legal consultation, or we don't write a memo and send it like that. It's more like it's a hotline. But then if you really need a lawyer, then we also offer that. So we say, well,
Okay, I was going to ask you that.
this situation, someone
Requires
has
like
sued
a
you.
suit. Yes.
Yeah, exactly right. So someone has sued you. You definitely need here a lawyer to defend you, and you can find one yourself, or we also have a marketplace with specialized lawyers. We can find the right one for you, and we will even guarantee the service level, because that's one of the things as well that I think many people are also a little afraid sometimes to use a lawyer, because, well, they're afraid that it will be too expensive, but also they don't necessarily have a existing trustful relationship with a lawyer. So that's where we also come in and say, look, if you don't feel comfortable with the service provided by this lawyer, we will find you another one. So that's kind of also a way to kind of bridge the use of lawyers. So that's what we're doing, and seeing very great traction and a lot of interest. Already thinking of how we can get this to other parts of the world.
I see. That's great. Actually, I was going to ask you now about Legal Pass, because I know that since last time we spoke, I think the company was rebranded maybe, or there were some changes. So I was excited to hear more about you regarding what you're doing now. And I wanted to ask a couple of questions related to Legal Pass based on what you told me. First of all, you told me that you are in Brazil. Is this the only jurisdiction now that you are offering your services, or are you in any other jurisdiction aside from Brazil?
Yeah, so for now we are just in Brazil. So Brazil is I don't know if I mentioned it last time, but Brazil is everyone knows it's a large country. More than 200 million people live there.
Yes,
Uh, but it's also, and this I don't think many people know, that it's one of the countries with the most lawyers per capita, but also in total. So I think just a year ago or something, they surpassed the US in terms of total amount of lawyers. So in the US, there's 1.2 million, I think, and in Brazil, there's 1.3 million now. So, and growing still quite fast, while the US is very stagnant. And why is that? I've asked that to a lot of people, but I think one of the factors is that Brazilians, they use lawyers a lot. It's kind of like everyday life for them to use lawyers. They litigate a lot, so a lot of they're not afraid of a conflict, and they're not afraid of escalating that to court. So it's quite common for the average Brazilian to have at least one case in court at every given time, and that might sound crazy to to a European.
yeah, it's quite different
Uh,
here.
yeah, we're definitely not used to that, right? So for us, it's very scary, and with something we try to avoid. But so there, I think there's a high usage of lawyers, so it makes sense that there is a lot of lawyers, um, and but it's also a country that is very digital savvy, um, and the high adoption of mobiles, of social networks, but also of I would say digitalizing the whole justice system. So all court cases in Brazil are digital, and they even have like kind of like open access where you can get information and try to build intelligent data around it. So anyway, very interesting country from a legal tech perspective, and a huge market. Um, so yeah, so that's why we are focusing on Brazil. And I'm not sure that right now we are going to go to other markets, just because the opportunity in Brazil alone is so big.
I can tell. Yes, yes. And this guidance that you provide, and if necessary, subsequent um, interaction to lawyers in case there is like a lawsuit, etc. Does it cover like most of the most important areas of the law? Like, do you advise on civil law, criminal law, or is there any area that you exclude for whatever reason?
Yeah, so great question. So it is actually covering all areas of law. Um, you know, Even environmental law, but it's few people who have that kind of problems. But there's just one thing we don't cover, and that's employment law, because otherwise there would be this conflict between your employer who's paying for the service and then you as an employee. So
Makes sense.
we don't cover employment law. If you have any employment law issues, talk to your HR department. Is our standard answer. What we do in turn is actually we provide guidance to the HR department, because that's another thing that I've seen a lot, also working at AHELP, when it actually, I can blame myself a little bit here, and because I noticed that the HR team department don't get they don't get prioritized a lot by the legal team.
Mhm.
So typically they are lacking internal legal resources to help them staying up to date on employment and labor law, and getting contracts out the door, because the legal team is typically involved in litigation, in investor relations, financing, and other and commercial, right? So revenue, helping the sales team, and many times, a big sales contract is prioritized higher than updating the HR team on the news developments, right, in labor law. So what we do as well is that we go in and help HR. So we kind of act as a little bit of a in-house legal team for the HR department as well. Yeah, I know how it was at AirHelp and how little I deprioritized HR, and I'm sorry for that, Catherine, if you're out there. But now I'm making up for it as well with Legal Pass.
Well, I would say that's common in many companies, right? I mean, the legal team, I mean, unfortunately has a limited capacity, right? So they tend to prioritize those bigger cases that may bring more revenue immediately to the company rather than HR. But I think it's important for HR as well to be listened, because I know for sure that they must have like plenty of legal doubts. So I think you
Yeah.
provide a very interesting service in that sense.
Yeah, and they typically then, outsource in the sense that they then have their specialty labor law law firms, that they then call and so on, right? But of course, that's also a little expensive to have a lot of external law firms on your monthly bill. So yeah, um, but going back to the use of, let's say, tech in that sense. So what we're doing here is just, we're just talking to people, giving them guidance, and then we're thinking a lot about how can we do that efficiently, and so both in terms of, I would say, low cost, but also in terms of giving the right answer every time. Um, and here, of course, we're looking at LLM models as well. Um, and and I'm not super concerned about that kind of data being exposed, more that um, that these models are developing so fast that I'm a little cautious, like adopting or decide, like selecting one of them, because what if that one is not going to be the one that is, in 6 months is going to be outpaced by three other models, right? So for now, we are maybe a little conservatively just storing the data, and then once we have a little, I would say, clear view on which model is going to be, or models are going to be the dominant ones, and kind of stabilize, that we are then gonna, yeah, start implementing it.
I see. And I mean, I'm not a huge expert on the legal tech industry compared to you, but I mean, do you have like many competitors you think doing the same as you? I mean, I'm not asking for anything, too confidential, but the idea is, I mean, I don't know any more companies offering these kind of services, because, I mean, of course, I'm not part of the industry like you, but still, do you think like there's many more people offering that in other jurisdictions, or is it actually, something that you are pioneering in that sense?
I think definitely we are pioneering a little bit the way that it's offered, so that it's offered as an employee benefit. For sure, many companies have tried, and I think most of them have failed, and so did we actually in our previous model, where we were trying to do it direct B2C. So people could come and we would then, directly to us, and we would try to solve the situation. But it didn't scale, because the only way we could monetize would either be for those people to pay us for the guidance, which they didn't want to, or to get them all to go to a lawyer, uh, and then the lawyer would then maybe get a case, and then maybe be able to charge something, and then we would take commission from that. But the vast majority of situations, they never get to a point where you need to hire a lawyer.
Hmm.
These doubts, they typically are solved with some, 5-10 minute conversation. Um, and and so there was just not really a suitable way to monetize it. So although we wanted, for this to work and really tried, it just didn't. We have to make money as well, right? So we can't just provide a free service, and it doesn't work like that. So and I think a lot of companies have tried, and they have discovered the same that we did, that it's almost impossible to monetize like that. Um, but there's other models out there. So one is where you try to give, like, I would say, guidance in all kinds of circumstances. Then there's the one where you, as a provider, try to narrow down the circumstances, and this is where I would say templification comes in, where you have legal documents specific for certain situations. So, for example, you're getting married, right? Okay, you need a marriage contract. You're getting a divorce. Okay, you need a separation contract, stuff like that. So that's where the template market came from. And you have big companies like LegalZoom that is listed in the US Stock Exchange. You have Rocket Lawyer is probably the other big one here. And the concept of that is a little bit do it yourself. So you go to their website, you know which situation you're in, you're getting married or you're getting divorced, right? It's pretty obvious. And then there's a document there that you can then download, and there's some guidance of how you should fill it out. And now you can even as well talk to a lawyer who will support you while you fill out the document. But that's I would say it. So that's the template market, the do-it-yourself legal market, which is very, very big. I mean, you wouldn't have LegalZoom on the stock exchange if it wasn't.
Sure.
And there's a lot of local players around the world that do templates, template-based work. So you can find them in almost any jurisdiction. So that's another way to do it. But I think we really want to solve the vast majority of situations, which is, the doubt, any kind of. It's also probably the hardest one to solve, but I think we're really onto something here with the benefit model.
So what you told me now, Christian, I think it's the magic of startups, right? I mean, you told me that you started with a different business model. I mean, the idea was the same. You saw there was a need in the market for your services, but the idea was somewhat different. And in the end, you adapted the idea to what you think might be more productive as a business model for you in the future.
Yeah, no, exactly. And, that's the beauty and the struggle of early stage startup, right? To find not just a product market fit, but also that you find a way to generate to have a sustainable business, right? So but I think we are really on track now, and you can really tell when you find it. So very happy. It's been a few years. So yeah, it's good.
Happy. I'm very happy to hear that, and I wish you all the best for your company.
Thank you, Oriol. And a pleasure for having me.
No, and before wrapping this up, I only wanted to ask you briefly if you could share any thoughts about what you think the future of the legal tech industry will look like this coming 1 or 2 years. I mean, any thoughts, any ideas before wrapping this up?
So again, I think there's definitely, there's the LLM race. So we'll see which one will be more adopted. And then I think we'll see, as I said before, that large law firms will have their own models that they will use and continuously improve. So that's, I think that's a little bit the future. And then hopefully, well, there will be companies like ourselves that are gonna develop a model that works on, I would say, more general public questions and then answers. So I think that's gonna be very interesting in the coming years. I think that's gonna be but I don't think that the billable hour model is gonna be outphased anytime soon, if ever. So I don't know if that's a good good outcome or doom's outcome, but I think the billable hour is going to stick around.
No, I mean, it's very lucrative for sure, right? Well, thank you very much, Christian, for your time today. It's been a pleasure to host you again and to be able to talk about the latest updates in legal tech, artificial intelligence applied to legal tech as well, and to hear about your very interesting company, Legal Pass. So thank you for that. And as I said before, I'm looking forward to hosting you again in the future. And good luck to you. I hope that next time we get to speak, your company is still growing steadily and doing, I mean, as great as now or even better.
Thanks, Oriol, and thanks to everyone who has been listening. And again, thanks for having me. And look forward to next time.
And to all my listeners, thank you for listening to this episode. And please feel free to follow me and Christian on our social media. Thank you very much, and see you all soon.